I mean, I speak a little bit of Spanish because I played in Mexico, but at the end of the year, they asked me if I wanted to come make a little extra money playing for the Estrellas and the not the Estrellas, for Caracas in Venezuela. And we were busing from, I want to say it's, I think it's Margarita. We were busing from somewhere. It was probably a 4-hour trip.
Yeah.
And our bus, right after we finished eating at this roadside, I guess,
street meat,
whatever you want to call it, yeah.
A little shack set up.
Yeah, some roadside, place to get food. We get back on the bus and probably far enough so that you don't see any streetlights or feel the safety of, I guess, a metropolis.
Yeah.
Our bus starts the compartment starts filling up with smoke. And not like this is toxic smoke, like we smell it and we're like, there's something wrong. And sure enough, it starts rumbling a little bit and then it just slows down. So we end up on the side of the road in Venezuela. I don't know if you know how things are going down there, but that's not where you want to be.
I would assume not great.
Yeah, not the best place. Because I remember at the roadside cafe, I'll call it, I had my phone out, because I was, just looking at, text messages or whatever. And one of the Americans, immediately when he kind of saw my phone was out, he like kind of cussed at me, like disappointed, like, hey, put your phone up. And I was like, sorry? And he's like, they'll kill you for that phone out here. That'll feed their family for like months, And I'm like, oh. And then
where am I?
An hour later, we break down.
Yeah.
and we're all just sitting on the side of the road just waiting for somebody to feed their family for a year because they know it's a baseball team that's got, guys that have played in the big leagues on it. So that would probably be my most, memorable just because of the on high alert status that it put me on.
Was it at night? Was that at night?
Yeah.
Oh, I hope.
Oh, yeah, it was the dead of the night.
Oh,
No.
So you start seeing the little eyes pop up in the distance. You're like, oh no.
Yeah, because it's not just humans that you're worried about there.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of exotic animals out there too that are looking just hungry.
I was telling Tiger before about my corals, my one summer of playing independent ball in Texas, and I was telling him that our tire melted onto the freeway on our way out to West Texas. So we were there for 3 hours in over 100-degree heat with a game that night. We get there, we get to the hotel. One of my teammates opens the door and sees a scorpion sitting on his bed. We all slept in the clubhouse that night. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah, that was a good one.
And what's crazy is just in line is what I said. You had 1 year in indie ball. I guess how many breakdowns you had.
Yeah, we had one. Yep.
There it is.
So I want to take it. I want to take it away from minor league baseball, and I want to just get your perspective. I mean, first of all, that's a heck of a look at minor league baseball because that's the truth. The first time you walked through the tunnel and you can see the light of the big league field, what is that like?
I wouldn't say I walked. It's more like a float.
Yeah.
You're just kind of, your feet don't touch the ground and you don't all the Advil or whatever you would take to get ready for the game is not necessary.
Yep.
I remember the first time I walked down the tunnel, it was in Atlanta, and just so happened to meet Chipper Jones on the way through the tunnel, and he's like, hey, what's up, kid? And I remember him saying that and being like, for some reason, I thought he knew me.
Yeah.
He called me kid.
Yep.
But it was I don't know how to explain it. It was definitely a surreal moment that you really can't put into words.
No,
because of the moment,
I completely understand where you're coming from because I've obviously never played in the big leagues, but I capped by playing independent ball, but walking onto the independent ball field out of the dugout and high-fiving the fans, and I'm like, oh my God, they are here to watch me play baseball. It was a culmination of everything I had worked towards. And I knew that was my peak. I did it because I could. I was that. I knew I wasn't I was 88 to 89. I'm not going to the big leagues. But
I see what you're saying.
But you were a Philly in 2008 and you came up you were a September call up You had 6 at bats.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing I specifically remember, because I was there, was the parade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the parade was unreal.
Somehow, some way, I finagled my way. I'm not even a Philly fan. Well, I was, I guess, because of you guys. But I somehow finagled into Citizens Bank Park with a friend. And they're coming. And the first car comes in and they're like, we welcome Greg Golson. I'm like, hey,
I know that guy.
wait a second.
I know that guy.
I was like Buddy the Elf when he found out Santa was coming. I'm like, I know him.
Yeah, that parade was crazy. I remember, so that was 2008. So I was, just above drinking age at 23. And
in your prime.
I remember the overwhelming amount of people who just pretty much walked up to the float and handed me a case of beer. Like, I can't even count how many people did it. I was like, I can't drink this much beer. But it was like every street there was 2 people that were just coming up. Hey, thanks for the memories. Like, man, I didn't even play in the World Series.
When you're in Philadelphia, you can drink that much beer. You have to.
It's a rule,
part of
I
lifestyle.
believe.
Yeah.
I believe if you win a championship in Philly, whether you are rostered or not, you just have to flash the ring. I mean, you have you have a ring?
Yeah. I mean, I've worn it a couple times up there in the it's almost like you can feel the stairs from across the room looking at your hand.
I mean,
it's a ridiculous ring.
That's crazy.
I mean, I've seen that one from Matheson, who stayed with us the year after you were, or the year before you were there. Yeah. And he, when he came up, he brought it because I guess it's his toy, and he just shows it off to everybody. And I'm like, bro, you got to put that away. You're letting 9-year-olds put it on. I'm like, you got to put that thing away. You got to stop. So after your time in Philly, you go to Texas and you end up with the Yankees. We all have seen it. The throw. Now, I do have a question, and that'll lead to my next follow-up on this. Is it something that you're because there's 2 ways to look at it. Like, is it something you look at and you're proud of, or is it something you're like, that doesn't define me?
Both. Absolutely both.
Yeah.
I after I was kind of touching on what you had said before, it was like a serious, this is my job type of thing. So, though for so long, from basically 2004 to that point in 2010, 6 years, I had waited for an opportunity to kind of show, what I can do.
Yeah.
And nothing against Yankees or Girardi or anybody that that was making the decisions, but when I threw that guy out, when I threw Crawford out, it was like, yes, okay, I'm here. Now I can get maybe a couple more at bats.
Yeah, it was kind of like that when you're in an 0 for 20 slump and that first little bleeder that gets through and you're like, I'm back.
Yeah, and when I threw him out and got the I remember I kind of got upset because in taking it all in, and everyone is just like, oh man, that's awesome. A-Rod had the quote that kind of took all the sting out of the moment, and he said, who would have thought that Greg Golson would make a game-changing play in this series? And it's like, come on, man, you didn't have to say that.
What an A-Rod
I'm in the
thing
big
to
league.
say.
There is no quote that is more A-Rod than that.
Yeah.
Right? And he was a great guy. I spent a lot of time with him, and he helped me out a ton. But I just wish, I wish he hadn't have said that.
Yeah.
Because that's the only thing that, looking at that thing. Because the next day I get in there, and I think a lefty was pitching, and I was a right-handed hitter, and Girardi's big on the numbers on matchups, and I was like, well, sick. I just threw out Crawford, helping us win. Maybe with a lefty throwing on the mound tomorrow, I'll get a start.
Yeah. And
it was like, no. And I remember a couple of weeks later, we were in Anaheim, and they ended up playing Nunez, who isn't an outfielder, in left field or right field.
Yeah. Because
of the lefty that was pitching, and it was like, all right, I guess that's where you guys see my my ceiling as a defensive replacement base runner, and not really a hitter. So again, to circle back to your question, I'm definitely proud of it because it gave me a lot of notoriety. And
Yeah. I mean, we're still watching it today. Like,
yeah,
however many years later,
Yeah.
we're still watching it today. Personally,
Right,
if that was me, I've had the fat head across my my bedroom.
right. But at the same time, it's like, there's, I've gotten over the bitterness that a lot of minor league and, baseball players get for, I should be there. This is my, that was my whatever. So I've gotten over all the bitterness. But looking back at it, to answer your question again, I feel both for it. Like,
Yeah.
it's absolutely a great experience that I'll remember for the rest of my life and be able to tell my kids. But I wish it would have sparked a longer career.
It's pretty cool though to get it out for Mariano Rivera. Am I right? Like that. That's got to be like the top of the highlights of being in the major leagues.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the first times that I saw him smile and show any emotion. Really, like they pan to him when the umpire calls the guy out and he fist pump and he's like, yeah, smiling, and then he goes right back to the Kanye face.
Yeah,
He
it's
doesn't smile at all.
Straight nothingness. But I feel like as you get more space between playing and today, I feel like that'll you can appreciate what you accomplished a little more, because let's be serious, you're doing and did what we all dreamed of doing, and that's not just playing the big leagues, but you made a career out of baseball. You made a life. You're making a living out of playing baseball. Whether what you're doing now, which is, first of all, can I just say I have a gripe with you?
What's up?
So I found out what you're doing now, and I was like, wait a second. I applied for that job. I saw it online. I'm not saying it's the exact job, but I saw that you are working with the Dodgers in the scouting department. And about 4 or 5 months ago, right after the season, I applied for a Dodgers scouting job. Didn't get a call back. I wonder why, Greg.
Yeah, but now you got a foot in the door.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hey, Greg, hire me. Yeah, hire me. I can check out some high school pitchers in the area.
I'll see what I can do.
So what exactly are you doing over there?
That's a good question. I haven't. I leave tomorrow actually to go out there and basically get my orders, but I'll be scouting on the pro side.
Okay.
Just basically covering 3 organizations and trying to give them, my viewpoint on a couple players, whether it be for acquisition or for advanced scouting. I'm not sure what they would use my info for.
Yeah.
Or if they'll use it at all. Since this might be my first year, I might be terrible at it. And they're like, hey, you suck. But at the same time, I think it's more for just kind of acquiring information and seeing how I do in the position, and we'll go from there.
So you're going to be one of the guys that sits, which was 1 row ahead of where my family sat at the Blue Claws with the radar gun and the hat, and you all look at each other and show each other the guns and make sure you're all calibrated up. That was the funniest thing to me, was watching all the scouts come and they sit and they're like half comparing notes, half not. And I'm like, what'd you get on that one? 92? Oh, I got 91. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember seeing that on stopwatches when I was an amateur.
Yeah.
I'd run to first, and whether I was safe or out, I'd look at the collection of scouts that are down the first baseline comparing stopwatches, and I'm like, that must have been a good time if they're comparing it.
Yeah.
You don't really compare if it's a bad time. It's like, oh, that sucks.
Yeah, it's just, we know that was slow, but if it's fast, we're going to make sure that my finger wasn't quick.
Yeah, exactly.
Wrapping it up, and I want to thank you. Last question. What was the funniest thing you've ever seen in baseball? Because I heard a story that included the Phillies, where they would allow a player, unnamed player, I know the player's name, but I don't want to call him out on it. He's still currently in the big leagues. With the airplane that you would travel on was cleared out in the middle, so they would put all the rookies at the front of the airplane on skateboards, and when they would take off, they'd all bet on who's going to make it the furthest.
That's pretty good. I haven't seen that one, but it sounds definitely like something that would go out on one of those planes. You said the funniest thing that happened?
Just the stupidest story you can, if you were at a bar and your friends who you're close with said, what was the funniest thing that happened? What was it? Like, what's the first thing that pops into your head?
I mean, if this is at a bar, I'm definitely telling a different story than